Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. I am Margaret Tuck. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Like all Unitarian Universalist congregations, we are covenanted to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We are delighted to see newcomers and guests here in the sanctuary today. If you would like more information about us, we ask that you take a moment to fill out a blue card. They're in the back of the pockets and they look like this. And if you bring it to the welcoming table down the hallway as you leave the sanctuary after the service, we'll have a gift to say thank you for worshiping with us today. I'll be probably down there at that table. Following today's service, there is coffee and friendly conversation in our common room, which is also down the hall. If you wish, you can help us welcome you by using a blue mug during the coffee hour. I have a special reminder for everyone today that on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, we have a potluck dinner here at our church at 2 p.m. Potluck means that you bring a item to share with the rest of the group, and to assure that we don't get 10 pumpkin pies, we have a sign-up sheet in the hallway so that you can indicate what of the selection of foods you would like to bring. And that's always a very fun occasion for everybody here. There is a calendar of the week's activities in the program that you have, and additional information about our church is available in the e-announcements, which there's a hard copy on the table in the hallway. You are also welcome to check in at the UU Facebook page. And I would ask that you please turn off your cell phone and electronic devices. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jezibell Anat. I'm your worship associate for today. And we begin by lighting our chalice as a beacon of welcome. We are a welcoming congregation. We have our rainbow flag out today in celebration of Transgender Day of Remembrance. And we honor all people, the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. And we light this chalice to invite all to gather in our sacred space. As our opening, let us begin by opening our own hearts. We are still in an odd state after the election results. We are concerned about the rights of many, many individuals in this country. And we want to let everyone know that we stand with them. When they come for you, we will say no this time. We are not going to let history repeat itself. And with that in mind, let's bring that energy into our opening hymn. We are building a new way. I also want to let you know we have the Contemporary Music Ensemble playing with us on some of these hymns. And if anyone's interested in joining us with instruments, please see Linda McBurney after the service. So, Building a New Way is in the teal hymnal, number 1021. Please rise in body or spirit. 1017, I'm sorry. to our time of meditation and centering. And I invite you to get very comfortable in your seats. Feel the earth supporting you, feet on the ground. Straighten and relax your spine, lifting your head to the clouds. Take a few deep breaths. Bring yourself here. We have often been given messages, in some cases from family, society, some religious institutions, that we may not have been good enough. And part of learning to accept others and love others is being able to accept ourselves. And so our spoken words today actually come from the Bible. They're from Psalm 139. And following the spoken words, there'll be a time of silence. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. And the chime will take us in and out of silence. I'd like to invite our readers to come forward now. This is Joey Traina, Spradlin, Cheryl Martin, and Beth Proctor. So we get the mics arranged comfortably for you guys. Okay. So what we have to celebrate Transgender Day of Remembrance is a Reader's Theater by Jezibell. And it's based on a lot of true stories. They are woven together, and each character takes several voices. And it's learning about their journey and also learning about how to be an ally, which is what a lot of us are still working towards as we welcome everyone. Transgender rights are relatively new. These are people who've been closeted many times, and they have not always been accepted even by the gay community, and many religious organizations are very, very harsh towards people of fluid gender. And we as a welcoming congregation are working to change that and provide a safe space. And in that vein, this piece is called, You Have Always Been Welcome Here. The stories are all true. The genders in this play are various. Each reader portrays several characters. We have made no attempt to keep genders aligned. You'll notice they change roles as often as they read. We believe that's the first lesson.
I transitioned when I was 41 years old, but I've always known, I've known my whole life, that I was supposed to be a girl. I just never thought the reality of change was possible.
When I was little, I had an invisible friend who was my twin brother, Larry. He was my identical twin. It never occurred to me that since I was a girl, I couldn't have an identical twin that was a boy.
When I was 3 or 4, I had a girlfriend who lived across the street, and we would play tea. She had this long closet that seemed to go on forever, filled with the most beautiful clothes. I always wanted to try them on.
I went to Montessori school, and when I was pretty little, I remember a teacher asking us to consider what it would be like to be a different gender. I remember her saying something like,
Most people are pretty happy with their own gender.
and I remember thinking, I'd rather be a boy. But it wasn't like I was tortured or anything.
My dad and mom split up for several years right after I was born. When I was growing up, my babysitter and my grandma and my mom would all treat me like a little girl. They would all treat me how I wanted to be treated. They would let me play with dolls. They let my hair grow past my shoulders and brushed it all day long. At night, my grandma would put up my hair in curlers. She would say,
Don't tell Grandpa.
and we would wet my hair to make it straight before Grandpa came home.
Growing up, my dad would always make a joke whenever someone would ask him about his kids. He would say,
I have one of each, a girl daughter and a boy daughter.
he always thought it was hilarious every time.
I remember when people used to tell me that I would grow up to be a handsome young man, and I would think, just like my mother.
Then, when I was about 4 or 5, Dad came back into our lives. Dad made Mom and Grandma take me to a barber shop and give me a haircut. They cut off all my beautiful long blonde hair. I screamed and I cried. They had to hold me down.
From a very young age, everyone could tell I was different. Teachers at school always hesitated to identify me as a boy or girl when they first met me.
People would say to me, You sure
are
are
You're
different.
different.
And I would say to myself, yes, I am. But I still didn't know what it was that was different about me.
I would always run around in jeans and a t-shirt. I never conceived of changing my gender, but I was really uncomfortable with myself in a way that I couldn't articulate.
Because my dad was alcoholic, we moved once a year. We would pack up in the middle of the night and leave town when he didn't pay his bills. All the money our family had went to alcohol. Lucky for me, though, it meant that I was always the new kid in school. The fact that I was so different never caught up to me.
When I was young, I remember playing on the playground. The other kids would gather around me and yell, "You're a she-it! You're a she-it!" Then they would just shorten the words. "You're a shit.
You're a shit.
You're a shit." It was kindergarten. I was 5 years old. No one ever stopped me.
Then one day, I saw a picture of Christine
Jorgensen.
When I was 11, that was when I first saw a picture of Christine Jorgensen. She was the first well-known person to have transitioned from male to female in the 1950s. I remember tapping my finger on that picture and saying to myself, "That's me!" But I kept it a secret from my parents.
When I was 13 and the whole puberty thing happened, I felt an imperceptible pressure. Like, it's time to cut that stuff out. I never got super girly, but I started to pay more attention to my expressions of femininity.
My godparents were Assembly of God, and in the 1950s, that was a very Pentecostal denomination. Women couldn't cut their hair or wear jewelry or makeup. My parents didn't go to church, but each place we moved, I would go to church and drag my sisters along with me.
My family attended the largest Southern Baptist church in America. We had 7 softball fields, and at the front of the church was a huge dunk tank for people to wash away their sins, and they did every Sunday.
I was born and raised in the Unitarian Church. I'm told that's kind of rare. It's such a new church. Considering everything that's happened, I guess I'm pretty lucky.
Growing up, Mother always insisted we go to church wherever we moved. We were Methodists.
At 16, I started dating my first girlfriend. We didn't have a name for what we were doing, but we were pretty sure it was a sin. Every Sunday, I would watch her repent her sins and get dunked in the big tank. Then in the middle of the week, we would start fooling around again, and Sunday it would start all over.
After high school, I attended Texas Bible College. I was 18 years old, and I fell in love with my roommate. I didn't know how to deal with it. I never approached him or anything, but somehow they must have known. Something triggered them. When I came home from work one day, he was moved out. The school officials moved in Frank. Frank was the guy that would stand on the street corner and yell at people.
Repent your sins. Repent or burn in hell for all eternity.
He was so extremely religious that even all the rest of us Bible students made fun of him.
My senior year in high school, I started having my first serious relationship with a girl. I didn't tell my mom for a little while, even though I told her I love my mom and she's great. I just didn't want to have that discussion. But you know, when you're 17 and madly in love, it's hard to act normal. And my mom finally figured out that my best friend Heather wasn't really just my best friend.
After they moved my roommate out, I was called into the dean's office. The dean tried to make me confess that I was gay. I wouldn't do it. They called all my friends into the office and told them I was possessed by a demon and that they should not speak to me. When I approached any of my friends, they would literally run in the other direction. Every Wednesday service, the pastors preached against homosexuality. The church conducted altar calls and tried to cast the devil out of me. I stayed at Bible college until that summer. I had no place else to go.
I remember it was this one day, I was sitting at the kitchen table eating grilled cheese sandwiches, and my mom approached me saying that she knew that Heather and I were dating. She was upset. My mom said,
Honey, I have no problem with your having a relationship with a girl. I just feel like it's distracting you from your studies.
it seemed to me like, since she couldn't be mad at me for dating a girl, this was her way of being unhappy without saying she was unhappy. She wasn't supposed to be unhappy. We were a good, liberal, white, middle-class family. We had gay friends. We were Unitarians.
I did not have any romantic relationships when I was a man. None at all. Anytime people would talk about being gay, it would turn me off. I didn't want to have sex that way. Being homosexual turned me off. I have gay friends I love, but I'm heterosexual.
Pretty much everyone in high school knew I was gay by my senior year. The other students would vandalize my car and write lesbo on it. I had a teacher who told me once,
If I had a gay kid, I would take them out on a hunting trip and accidentally shoot them.
it was not a good time for me. And my family, I don't even want to talk about my family. I'm just glad that part is over.
It was during Vietnam, and I knew as soon as I left the Bible college, I would get drafted. At the same time, I was working in a hospital, and I wanted so much to be a nurse. The head nurse called me in. She could see I was in some kind of trouble. The head nurse told me to enlist in the Army as a medic because they had the best medical training. So I did. After the Army, I started nursing school, but quit after 10 months. It's something I still regret. There were only 4 guys in my whole nursing class. I quit because I didn't want people to think I was gay. I went to business college.
In college, I started becoming active in the JLBT association on campus. That's where I met my first trans guy. Not to be corny or anything, but seeing him was like this. Your whole life, you're painting a picture of yourself and your world. And even though it's not bad, the colors don't look right. And all of a sudden, someone comes in with a totally different palette, and it works. Like, this is what you've been waiting for the whole time, your whole life.
I looked at a map to see how far away you could get from Alabama and still be in the contiguous U.S. That would be Oregon. I moved away from Alabama as soon as I was 18 years old. I haven't talked to anyone I knew from there in over 20 years, including my family.
I went to the Metropolitan Community Church in Houston in the 1970s, and there was a college professor there who led a trans discussion group. That was one of the first things that opened my eyes.
When I finally started cross-dressing, it was very part-time. I would go to stores and buy women's clothing only right before a holiday so I could pretend I was buying a gift for my sister or wife. That was in the 1960s.
In Oregon, I found my community. I lived with other lesbians. I worked at a feminist nonprofit. I was a women's study major in college. I spent every summer at the Michigan Women's Music Festival.
I remember in Houston in the 1970s, there was a male-to-female transgender person, and the police would terrorize her when she would wear women's clothes and use women's restrooms. She was on the news all the time. My roommate was friends with this transgendered woman, and we would talk about her situation, and it made me think about my situation.
Okay, here's another analogy. First time I meet the trans guy, it was like being in a foreign country for a long time. And all of a sudden, across the town square, you see another American. And even if you don't talk to that person, it's like, oh, a relief, a kind of comfort. Something about it feels right.
When trans issues first started being talked about in the lesbian community, it really pissed me off. Now I know it was just hitting too close to home, but at that time I wasn't having any of it.
I moved to Oregon in 1979. A lesbian couple got me involved as a volunteer on the Gay Crisis Line. That's where I became friends with drag queens for the first time. That year, the queens convinced me to dress like a woman for Halloween.
You look fabulous.
It was the first time I had ever fully worn women's clothes. I had some dresses of my mom's that I rescued from the trash, but I would only wear those around the house. I put on the women's clothes and did my hair and makeup, but didn't want to leave the house. My friend finally made me go down the street to make a phone call to him on a payphone. No one said anything to me. I was afraid of this big, ugly world, and nothing happened.
I had been exploring cross-dressing for 10 to 15 years. I met people at Darcel's. We would meet and talk. You could say we were all pre-trans. That's where I found the book by Dr. John Brown, who also does surgery. I started communicating to him through mail and phone calls. When I got the surgery in 1976, it only cost $7,000. I cashed in my life insurance to get the surgery.
Finally, after going back and forth about it in 2005, at the age of 38, I decided to transition. I went through hormones and surgery. It's important for me that people know that not all butch lesbians are trans or secretly want to be men. Plenty of butch women identify as women.
About a year after that Halloween, I came out. I started hormones in 1986 and had my surgery in 1987. I was 41 years old.
You can be secretly gay, but you can't really be secretly trans. I didn't want to tell my mom, so I avoided going home. At that point, I was angry all the time, and my mom and I weren't getting along that well. I finally came home for some holiday and told her. It was nice that I felt like I told her on my schedule. I said that I felt I should have been born a boy, and I was going to take steps to make that more real. Mom said she didn't entirely understand, but that she would be supportive. That was that. It was a lot more simple than I expected.
At first, I wanted people to not use any gender pronoun. I didn't want to give in to the idea that there are only two genders, but that only made things more confusing. So I decided to ask people to start using he.
In my early 30s, I came out to my parents. I sent them a letter and a photo. I had way too much makeup on in that photo. Clown. When my mother got the letter, she started to cry. Both my parents were in shock. They called.
What's going on with you, Michael?
I said, I don't feel the way you think I should feel. It's just not there. I'm seeing a psychiatrist. My parents made plans to come out and visit.
When I called my mom to tell her I was coming out, the first thing she said was,
I've always known.
initially, I felt a lot of anger. I said, if you knew, why didn't you say anything? She said,
Baby, I just thought you figured it out on your own time.
but I thought about all those years I spent torturing myself when I could have transitioned earlier. My mom didn't deal with things head on. She couldn't really. We lived in so much chaos, all those kids, all that violence, and we were moving all the time.
My partner was not that into my transitioning at first. She had been an out lesbian for 15 years, and that was an important part of who she is. Being queer was an important part of who we both were. She was afraid of losing part of herself.
During my transition, I worked with 2 other guys. I finally told one of the guys, who was a friend of mine, about my situation, and he said,
But Matthew, we were just getting to know each other and doing neat stuff together.
after we stopped doing neat stuff together, eventually I had to tell the HR person what was going on. He wanted to let me go. I found an attorney who made it so I could stay. They moved me to another department where I just worked in the back doing mostly stock.
I went on testosterone and 8 months later had surgery. I was 20 years old. I sent my mom resources and books, but she also obviously did a lot of research on her own. Because it became clear to me that being trans was okay for her. I felt less tenuous in the world, and she saw that. One day she said to me,
You're not angry all the time anymore.
she got it, because it became plain that I was happier and more comfortable to be in the world in a more authentic way. She's my mom. She wanted me to be happy.
My partner and I knew that we weren't straight, but there wasn't a good category for what we were. So we decided to come up with our own category. We decided that we were going to be the gayest. We decided we were so gay that we were uber gay. What's gayer than being trans or being a lesbian married to a trans guy? Now that's gay.
My parents came to visit that summer. At that point, I would dress back and forth between male and female. The 3 of us went to my psychiatrist together, and that was that. We came out of the meeting, and my parents understood. I've had it too easy. God put certain people in my path, and I just love him for that.
I first met my sister's fiance, Hank, when I was still Bob. Then I met him a year later when I was Barbara. I was very nervous to see him. He was a football coach and pure Texan. I had just transitioned, and I was freaking out, wondering, how will this man respond to me? When Hank and my sister picked me up at the airport, Hank hugged me and carried my suitcase and opened the door for me and would pay for everything. You know, some people you think will be okay with my transitioning, and they totally surprised me. I've lost friends that I didn't expect to lose. And then Hank was one of the most comfortable people for me to be with. It just shows you can't judge.
After we all went to the psychiatrist and my parents understood what was going on, my dad said,
We need to move you. We need to find you a new home.
and in 1975 I changed jobs. I moved out to Beaverton and lived my new life as a woman. I never told anyone I was trans. Not at work, not in my neighborhood, no one. I lived there for 30 years.
I didn't need to worry about my biological family not accepting my trans status. I hadn't spoken to them in 20 years. I was worried about my community of friends. I couldn't lose them. They are my family. Most are women, most are queer. I thought they would be pretty fine, but I was still nervous.
When I told my sister, that was the hardest. She's my twin, and I told her over the phone, and she started to cry. She sobbed. It broke my heart. She said,
I don't know you anymore. When I see you again, I won't recognize you.
I told her, no, This way, I would be more of who I really am, and she would actually know me better. She came around pretty soon, but she became more worried about me getting hurt in a trans-bashing attack. She was worried I would be killed.
I still had a guilty feeling about whether I made the right choice, whether what I was doing was a sin. I would always just wear jeans and a sweatshirt. My mom and dad were pretty okay with my transition. My brother is friendly, but he won't talk about it. He feels like he lost a brother.
I came out as trans at the end of my freshman year in college, and pretty soon all of my high school friends back home found out. None of them would talk to me after that. One of my friends I had known since we were 6 months old. Our parents met at church when we were babies. I called and left messages, but she never called me back. I guess I could have tried harder.
Was it hard for some of them? A little. Some of the butch women felt sort of abandoned, but they are still here, and they are still my friends, and they are still my family.
Soon after transitioning, my grandmother died, and I went to the funeral. I was in the yard talking to two older relatives, and my Aunt Gracie came to me and said, "You are..." "I'm Barbara, Delilah's daughter. I live in Portland." "Oh, you live in Portland with Bobby?" I said, "No, I am Bobby. I had a sex change operation." Aunt Gracie sucked in air, and everybody drifted away, and I was all by myself. It was scary, but I wanted to be honest. Later on, my Aunt Gracie asked if she could ride to the airport with me, and she held my hand the whole time and talked to me about her children in Alaska.
During the time I was exploring transitioning, I did not go to church, but God was still in my mind. The Bible was still close to me. I sometimes felt like this is a sin, but I knew I had to do it. I couldn't find anything to really answer my question whether or not it really was a sin. Sometimes I would look to Psalm 139 for comfort.
For you formed my inward parts.
You knitted me together in my mother's womb.
I praise you,
For I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well.
I stopped going to church very intentionally when I transitioned. I just couldn't face everybody. I had known many of these people since I was a baby. I would rather leave church behind with fond memories than face what I thought was inevitable rejection. I don't know why I thought this. It was not my history with the church. Of course, when I came out, people were perfectly kind and supportive. My mom encouraged me to speak at the church. There was a sermon on trans issues, and I spoke at the sermon. Came out to the whole church. I got a standing ovation. People cried and came up to me afterward and said great things.
I finally went back to the church 12 years ago. This was well before I transitioned. My partner and I went church shopping. One day we were visiting a United Church of Christ church. They were having their vote that day to become an open and affirming congregation. We decided it must be a sign from God.
There was a guy at work who the company sent in to talk about the Bible. He wanted me to come to his church, and I felt a calling, so I went. I've been there for over 20 years. At one point, when I was struggling to decide if what I was a sin, I finally told my pastor. I asked him if I should change back, and he said,
"Marianne, open the Bible.
and he showed me a verse.
Only let each person live the life that the Lord has assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is my rule in all the churches. Was anyone at the time of his call already circumcised? Let him not seek to remove the marks of circumcision. Was anyone at the time of his call uncircumcised? Let him not seek circumcision. For neither circumcision counts for anything, nor uncircumcision, but keeping the commandments of God."
I heard him say it, but still couldn't believe it. Remain just as I am. I didn't have to change back. I didn't have to go through the surgery again.
When I came out of the church as trans, I got lots of support. Though some of the older ladies didn't quite understand what I was talking about, they thought I'd always been a man.
After my college experience, I was angry at God, and I was mad at the church, and I refused to have anything to do with any of it. In my mind, Christians were judgmental and bad. But God was important to me, and in my 50s, my therapist helped convince me to go back. First, I joined the Methodist church, but I kept passing this UCC church on my way to work and back. And it had this huge banner that said, multiracial, multicultural, open and affirming on the outside. I finally went one Sunday, and I have been going ever since for the past 7 years.
After I told the pastor about being trans, I didn't ever tell anybody else in the church until recently. I told the leader of my Bible study group. She told me,
Marianne, you're really a man.
I am what I am, I would say. That's how God called me.
There is nowhere in the Bible that says anything about being transgendered.
That's how she always says it, with a sneer in her voice.
Transgender.
I finally asked her to only say TG so that I wouldn't have to hear her sneer.
When I first came out, I had to be really out. I wanted to get in people's faces about it before they said anything bad to me. But I got tired of all that. My senior year, I was passing as a man, but everyone at college knew I was trans.
It's obvious to me that when someone accepts me for who I am, and then they find out that I'm trans, after that they relate to me differently. Not bad, just different.
People who knew me before still struggle with my pronouns, still call me she instead of he. I understand their struggle, but it gets embarrassing in certain public situations. I mean, I have a beard and I'm going bald.
I moved to another city, and now I'm not out at graduate school or my work. Now it's like no one knows unless I tell them. It's comforting, but it's sort of isolating. Everyone wants to be known for who they fully are. But it's frustrating because the minute I do come out as trans, it's all they see. Being trans is part of who I am, but not all-encompassing.
In 2006, my landlord sold the house I was living in, and I moved out to Hillsborough. That's when everything changed somehow. I got on the internet, found other trans people, and got to know them. I stopped wearing jeans and t-shirts. I dyed my hair red and started wearing girly clothes that matched my new autumn coloring.
Some people are able to strike a balance between being out as trans, but not having that be the only thing you are. I haven't found that yet. I haven't been able to take that chance. I'm afraid it will screw everything up if I come out. Sometimes I really need to discharge, and there aren't many people to talk to.
I've started attending P-Flag groups and going to groups at the Q Center. I've started coming out to people about being trans. This was not like me. In grade school, I couldn't even stand in front of my classmates and give a report. I still keep stealth where I need it. Most people at church don't know. I have told one of my neighbors, but something has happened to me and I don't know what.
Being raised in the UU, I don't necessarily believe in heaven or hell, but I believe you'll be held accountable to God or community on how well you treated others. That's as far as I ever got with it.
On the day of judgment, I'm not sure what is going to happen. When I talk to people and they say they don't believe in hell, I don't get it. They mention hell 54 times in the Bible. You can't make God over in your own image. He made us in His own image.
There's that passage in Genesis that says,
God created man in His own image, male and female.
male and female, not male or female. Now there is a theory that this passage means that trans people are actually closest to God, but I don't go around saying it because it seems a little like humility.
We are all creations of God. We are natural and beautiful. God makes transgendered people like everyone else. There's no doubt in my mind.
When I think about making decisions based on the belief of the inherent worth and dignity of each individual, I'm able to come back to myself and my spirituality. I'm able to pay homage to my religious upbringing. I was lucky to be raised in the UU. For so many queer people, church is a place of terror. Church is supposed to add love and life. It has become this terrible place for so many people.
I play with the idea of leaving my conservative church, but it seems strange with all the fundamentalist thoughts I have in my head.
Having a church that supports me means a lot to me, like it means to anyone to feel supported in their journey through life.
The men's group at church just invited me out on one of their fundraisers. We're going to do manly things together. It's kind of funny, but it's great, and it feels like the rite of passage.
God is seeing me now as who I really am. You know, personally, I think that when I was a boy, that's when I was trans. Now I really am who I'm supposed to be, and God is looking at me.
Be aware that if dealing with trans issues does not apply now in your church, it will someday. We all raise children in our churches, and some will be gay, and some will be trans. Faith is a wonderful gift to give to children. We should not take it away by making someone feel like they do not belong. I would hate to be that minister or rabbi or priest having to have that conversation with an adult who felt left out of the church as a young person. It would break my heart. It is better to be ready rather than retroactive. Start off on the right foot to begin with. It's better to be able to say, you've always been welcome here.
You have always been welcome here.
You have always been welcome here.
You have always been welcome here.
And you have always been welcome here. Thank you to our readers, Cheryl. We are here to lean on each other. There will be a discussion at 12:30 if you would like to talk about some of the things that came up in this sermon, in this theater piece. And now we extinguish the chalice in here so that we may take our light out into the world. Go in peace, believe in peace, create peace. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe.